Cautiously, he tested it with his weight, and it held. The slipperiness was more of a problem. He had to hang onto the TARDIS's door frame as he shifted his weight onto his outstretched foot. Carefully, he brought the other foot out and found a safe-ish place for it. Finally, he leaned onto it. There! He beamed at his own cleverness. Wasn't so difficult, was... The doctor began to flail his hands around as his left foot started to slip and slide. And as his other foot decided to join in the fun, he instinctively grabbed for the open doorway to the TARDIS, which was a big mistake. With a creak and groan of roots and a deep squelch of mud, the TARDIS began to slide down the bank towards the water, and the doctor again began to lose his balance. "Wellingtons!" was the only thing he managed to cry out to Martha as he landed flat on his back in a spray of muddy water. He lifted himself up onto his elbows just in time to see his beloved TARDIS pause at the edge of the swamp before it tipped, almost as if it were waving him goodbye. There was an almighty splash, a brief gush of bubbles, and a massive wave that spread out across the swamp. And then the TARDIS was gone. "Wellingtons," he repeated in a disbelieving whisper. "Don't forget your Wellingtons, Martha." Martha was sure she heard the doctor shout something, but when she reached the console room, there was no sign of him. Then she noticed the door. It was ajar. The reason she hadn't noticed it before was that as far as she could see, it was dark outside. It was as if something flat and dark had been pressed up against the open door. Martha reached out her hand gently and found herself touching the darkness. Only it wasn't quite solid. Delicately, she pushed at it and it stretched away from her. Gritting her teeth, she pushed again, and suddenly her hand and arm were through it. For a moment she froze, feeling a cool wetness soak through to her skin. "Water," she thought instantly. "It's what?" And before she could even complete the thought, something powerful and muscled wrapped itself around her wrist. Her mouth was still open in an unfinished scream as she was dragged into the death-dark waters. The doctor could do nothing but stare blankly at the spot where the TARDIS had vanished. His first thought had been for Martha, but he suspected that she'd be fine. The fact that just a few air bubbles had broken on the water's surface showed that the TARDIS had activated its force field. But that didn't help him with getting it back.